Welcome to the Spirit of a Badass, where we celebrate stories of courage, hope, and resiliency. I am your host, Alecia Jacobson. Hello, my badasses. Welcome to today's episode. I am so glad you are here. If you are loving this podcast, I would be so grateful if you subscribed and downloaded the episodes and also share it on your social medias. I would love it if you tag me and also sharing it with anybody who you think would appreciate it, especially today's episode, because this episode was born out of the kind of isolation of parenting older children. And it's something that, as you know, I've talked about. My son went off to college and, we have older teens, and it comes with this complexity that I feel like nobody talks about because there's such a space of privacy that comes with it and respecting, their privacy. And also, how do you navigate it? Because when you are a parent of young children, there's so many books and resources and all of these things that you can collectively come together with your people and problem solve. And as you, start parenting older teens and young adults, I feel like the resources dwindle. And today's episode, I'm really excited to share with you that Jen Bluske and I are both in this space together. And Jen is a parenting coach, and she shares so many great tips. And we have some aha moments along the way and just come up with some really neat ways that you can be in this space, and then how you can kind of cultivate this within the people that you have and find those trusted relationships and feel kind of empowered and safe enough to navigate this new path that we're on, because it really feels kind of uncharted and it's much different than we were parented or lack thereof. And it's just this new space. So I think I'm really happy that there has been this conversation today, and I'm so excited for you to meet our guest and be able to share in her knowledge. So welcome, Jen Bluske. She is a parent coach, occupational therapist, and founder of Thriving Parents Collective. She is also the director of the Children's Therapy Network, a family-focused, multidisciplinary therapy clinic in Madison, Wisconsin. She is now working directly with the parents to support change for children through parent-child relationship. Jen supports parents to find their own deeper understanding of their role and become a safe and stable base for their child's development, however uneven it may be. Through her work, as well as experience of parenting two adopted children, Jen has sought extensive additional training in the areas of attachment, parent-child regulation, and trauma. In her free time, Jen is happiest when immersed in nature and is digging in the dirt with her plants or listening to live music. Welcome, Jen. Thanks for being here.
Hey, great to be here.
It's funny. I share a lot on here about I have to plan my outfit around the topic and I think I failed today because I'm like, I don't know where I'm going to go with this topic. And coming in here, and I shared with you, I just got an email, from school about my youngest. And I'm like, there's resources for that. But also when I read the email, the dryer was on. I also got my period today. The dryer was on and I was picking out a shirt and I was like, the dryer started driving me nuts. And the collar of my shirt, I was like, I can't wear this shirt. I cannot wear this shirt because it is touching me and it is too tight. But it was the email from school that like kind of cascaded my internal feeling. And I feel, and I'm guessing that you feel this too, and I've talked to a lot of parents recently, is that with younger kids, there seems like there is a blueprint. There's Facebook. You can anonymously post, hey, my kid this or this, and that. And with older teens and adult children, I feel like we're out here in like the wild, wild west. And I have some very close friends who have been my mentors in parenting, and they don't have the answers. And if they don't have the answers, who has the answers?
What are we going to do? With these kids?
So tell me, what are the ages of your kids?
Yeah. So my kids are 18 and 20.
Okay.
Right. And so I came to this work as an OT and a parent coach thinking that I know these things. And then actual parenting kind of slaps you in the face sometimes and says, you know what, you have a lot to learn yet. And so, I'm in it. I'm in it. And what we do about it and how we manage this stage of development, really.
And coming from when you're a parent coach, is there kind of ages when you do that? Like what is your primary a parent
Age.
coach?
Yeah.
Yeah. What does that look like?
I mean, parent coaching can be any age of parenting, right? Parenting of any age of child. I will say that most folks show up for parent coaching when their kids are around 4 or 5, right? Because that's when, the baby stage wears off and sometimes the quote unquote behaviors pop in. And then there's another round of parents who tend to show up in those teenage years because, right, development just shifts so much. And you almost have to have a whole nother set of skills in order to know what to do.
Yes, that's the crazy part. And I've got both. I mean, my youngest is 8. She just turned 8. And my oldest, our oldest together is almost 20, but mine that I parent, parenting is just turned 18. And it's like, it's crazy. The different things that change. Like I saw a TikTok yesterday and it was talking about parents of infants, like, this is so hard. And then it like cuts to like this other like meme or something of like the toddler parents like laughing, and it just went into like adult parents. And it's like every stage has its new set of challenges and kind of unexpected territory.
And when we're thinking about teens and young adults, the whole point of that developmental phase is for us to let go. And so when we've spent, 13, 15, 18 years holding on and guiding and supporting, and then suddenly development says, actually back off. I don't know, but for me, I don't know how it feels for you, but it feels really disconcerting and really like you're dealing with sort of like your own loss at the same time as you're trying to find a new way to parent.
Yeah. So I have bigs and littles. My youngest of the bigs, who is now 16, she actually had this, it was different from most because she kind of started it like in COVID. I think the whole school in their bedroom set off this weird thing. And she spent a lot of her time retreated from me. And we used to play the Frozen, like the knock, 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 missing you outside her door, like, come hang out with me. And now in the last 6 months, this child is hanging out. Like, she's just sitting with me all the time, not in her bedroom. And I'm like, this is so interesting because it was the exact opposite with my older son. And it's like, you just don't know because there is this like, well, I have to let you do this, but I miss you. And how do you even, my oldest, he's navigating doctor appointments and things like that. He has to make these appointments and I'm telling him to make these appointments. And I'm also like, I need you to do these things I can't do it for you anymore. And how do you navigate these adult spaces? And then also not, I have to let him do it himself, but I also don't want him to fail at doing it himself,
Yeah, I'm navigating the same thing right now with my daughter who's dealing with some medical stuff and exactly having to, as an 18-year-old, manage all of these medical appointments and for the first time making medical decisions for herself that previously as a parent, of course I would have made for her.
Yeah.
And so, I find myself wanting to instruct and give her this long spiel about the whys and what needs to happen. And if you don't, then. And what I'm finding is if we've done our very best in parenting, our kids have that decision making in place. And they might make really different decisions than what we would make.
Yeah.
And I find, at least I'm finding, it's that discomfort, or, if your son forgets to make the appointment, it's the discomfort of seeing them fail, hopefully a small f fail, and knowing that they have the resources and the resiliency to kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
Even though if we had helped them, it would have been maybe easier.
Smoother and easier. And we know it's done and the boxes are checked.
Yeah. That's what I, as a parent, and that's what I know of development is happening. Like, gosh, they have to do their own path, which is completely separate from us. Hopefully they invite us along on the ride.
Yeah. It's so interesting because mine are, they're not even opposites, but they're so different and showing up. I mean, with little kids, I just feel like there's so much information out there. I feel like the support system that hopefully we developed and you listeners have developed within your community. They say it takes a village, but when you get to this age of teenagers and young adults, there's some, like privacy. And the people who, at least I've noticed, that were my kind of confidant people before, now it's, well, this information my kid wouldn't want shared. Right. And it's like, how do we process that when, it's like, where do we put this big, the things that I've heard, people tell me things with my, job as a coach, I know the things. And then also I've just built relationships with people over the years that people know that once it goes into my ears, it's not going to come out. So I hear the things that these, probably much like you, the things that these parents are holding space for that they have no place to put because they're teens and young adults, where if they were kids, it's a Google search or it's a pediatrician question or all of these things where the personality of the kid, the temperament of the adult, child, teen, and then how do we kind of, like you said, like walk it with them on our own and let them do it when everything, it's just so unknown and like figuring that out. From your perspective, what do you, and it's hard too, because I feel like we're both in it.
We're in
so
it, right?
It's kind of hard to see it from the weeds. But the other part of it is, I feel like there's not a lot of people ahead of us, because if you look at our generation and how we were parented, I left before I even graduated high school and never looked back. Mm-hmm. It was sort of like, oh, you are either close to 18. I have friends who they graduated before they turned 18. Their parents moved and they were on their own. There wasn't this kind of parallel, I got you. So we don't even have like a playbook of prior generations to support us in this.
No,
we are it.
We are it. And I feel like you kind of hit the nail on the head of holding space, right? Holding space for us. And I am in it, so I might have a different opinion in 5 years. But even when I think about when my kids were, younger teens and, starting to do the naughty stuff, right? That's naughty stuff all kids do, and just the testing limits and things like that. And I found that turning back to yourself and making sure that you're okay as the parent, whether or not your kids are making decisions you might want them to do, or whether or not they're sassing off to you that day, or whether or not they're following the rules, or all the things, right, that the teenagers and the young adults are going to be doing, is so foundational, right? When they're little, I feel like we talk about, so-and-so had a tantrum at Target. What do I do about it? When they're older, it's, my child did this. How am I going to continue to show up and be a grounded, connected force? It shifts.
Yeah. That's a tricky one. I haven't had a whole lot of there was one time I won't say what it was, but something happened. And it was like, I was parented, kind of like you do the opposite sometimes. I was parented in a very, this is my way or the highway. This is what we do. And so I was a very rebellious. You name it, I did it times 100. And so I have swung the exact opposite with my kids, where it's like a lot of conversations, so when the thing happened, it was like, okay, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the risks. And, and I think that was fine. But when you talk about being grounded as a parent, I struggle sometimes with my older one, because it's actually my two bookend children, I call them. They have a very similar personality, where I have to retreat and take space to be able to be grounded, and they don't give that with what they need. And that is a struggle. I struggle big time with my older one to stay grounded in intense moments. And I don't know. I used to, in my divorce, my kids did not want to go to therapy. And one of the things that I did was I went to therapy for them. So I would take what happened and I would talk to I had a local therapist who was just remarkable. And so she would kind of help me, kind of probably similar to what you do. She coached me on how to properly do that. And that was super helpful. And something like that, I imagine, would be like a safe space to put things like that, to gain tools.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the ability to sort of talk about your experience. I mean, you're right. In our teenagers and our young adults, we can't always share with our trusted confidants what's happening, but we sure can share like how it's affecting us.
Yeah.
Right.
How do you see that looking with, if you can't share? I'm thinking of a couple stories I've heard recently where the topic is very sensitive. And how would you go about sharing with your trusted people when you can't share the thing? Because I feel like people are naturally nosy. And I mean, I know I'm like, let me get to like figure out the dirt on. And I guess if it's your trusted friend, they're going to respect that. How do you think you go about sharing without the details? What does that look like?
I think that there's a place to reflect back. We had a tricky interaction, or I found out some tricky information about my kiddo, or we had a really tricky night where there was lots of yelling potentially.
Mm-hmm.
And then the thing that I know I'm always looking for is like, how do I show up different next time? Like, do I want to hold my ground as a parent? Do I want to quietly sit and reflect? And I think you can do that without having the specifics.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can do that with either a confidant or a therapist who is able to sort of respond to like what's getting in the way for you.
Yeah.
Right. I think that after you've parented for 13, 15, 18, 20 years, right, you've got some things under your belt. And typically what I'm seeing pop up for parents, and I know what's popping up for me, is that I don't have control anymore, or at least the perception of control.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that that's the piece that I don't know. I find that when somebody reflects back to me, like, is what's happening something you need to change? Sometimes it's a clear, actually, no.
Mm-hmm.
Or sometimes it's a, yeah, I do. I need to do something about it. And it's a small piece, but it allows us to still be seen and heard without breaking the confidence of our children.
Mm-hmm. I love that I hadn't thought about it that way, of not having control. I mean, not that we don't have fucking control anyway.
We don't have control anyways, right? We just have the perception that we do when they're younger.
Yes. Right. However, it's like I keep hearing which it's so funny because people are like, oh, you hear like the little kids, little problems, big kids, I've never heard that before, which is so bizarre. But at least maybe it didn't. If it wasn't that I didn't hear it, it's sort of like, when you're going to buy a new car, all of a sudden you see the car everywhere. But now everybody's saying that to me. And I'm like, why was there no warning label? How come nobody told me that this was so challenging? And I love that you pointed out the control, because I think I can share this because she hasn't given me permission, but she's sharing. And I know I shared this with you in a previous encounter. My younger of the big, she's 16. I already spoke about her, is going to do a different kind of schooling. And it is non-traditional, and it is hitting me in a way that I feel, which I know I have anxiety about things like driving. And I had talked to my therapist, and she's talked about the releasing of needing to control the outcome, or, things like that. And my husband and I do these like walks around the block and kind of just, word vomit everything. And I have this thing of, what if something happens, because I'm negative thinking always. What if something happens bad in the trajectory of her life because I allowed her to essentially make this decision? And we've gone through all of these talks. Like, she's very introspective and thoughtful, but she also does not have a fully developed brain.
Correct.
And I am, it's like, how do I navigate this, trusting her and releasing that control of, and truly it's like, okay, if it doesn't work, pick a different option. But also these things seem so big, and you hit it with the lack of perceived control. Cause I don't have control anyway. Something could happen where she is right now. Like, I'm not in control of it, but it's the out of the norm. Something is different. And I think that's what we're just in the space of, it's different, and it's unknown, and we feel like we don't have control, and it's just a new uncharted territory.
Yeah. I'm kind of managing the same thing with one of my kids, where they're choosing a non-traditional path. right? And I chose a very traditional path. Like, what's this non-traditional path stuff? Like, why would you do,
Yeah.
And something I've really been thinking about with my, idea that I need to hold on and like make sure that it's all going to work for them is using the skills that I have as a parent. And I should not say the skills, I should say the connection I have with my child to ask questions around it. Like, I don't know, what will it feel like if it doesn't work? What's your plan B? Do you have an idea of when you might want to choose a plan B? I just still don't get control over any of that. However, my hope is that my child is internalizing some of that problem solving so that if it all does go wrong, that they have something on board in order to react to in some way. And they know they can come back to me because I'm still the safe, stable base.
Yeah. So when you say this, I just recently had a conversation with her, like the sort of like nitty gritty, essentially what you just described. And I wonder, because I hadn't thought about, I noticed it only in the moment, but I've never actually given this any thought it's pouring out of my mouth right now. Have you noticed when you do that, you have to very much self-manage like the part of you that's like, I feel like I'm like pushing down the like mama bear inside of me, I have the answers. And I noticed because I remember at one point having this conversation, my arms were crossed, which is a natural stance for me, but I was hyper aware of my body language, my cadence of my voice, trying to sound open and thoughtful. And I know at some points it wasn't, because I could see it in her that she would stiffen up. And is that something that you have noticed that you have to self-manage more than usual?
So much regulation. Yes. So much distress tolerance. I'm sitting in it all of the time because, again, I can't control these two.
Yeah.
They're too old, nor could I ever. But yes, I noticed that. And it's so interesting, specifically with my daughter. And we've talked about this on my podcast, so I feel comfortable sharing it, where sometimes we aren't self-managing, or I'm not self-managing because this is my job. And then we have to do do-overs. We now know, like, oh gosh, take a space, take a pause. We might take 2 days of a pause, really, between what her and I are able to do, and then come back to give myself a second to self-manage and reapproach it.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually just happened with some decisions that she's making. And it takes so much intentionality. And I don't know about you, but I'm not always getting it right.
No, I came down, she shared something with me a couple days ago, and it was later at night, and they do know, which I feel kind of bad, but I'm like, if it's after 7, I don't have the capacity to manage all of the things within my being as I do at 7 a.m. I just don't. And she shared some information with me, just sharing it. And I'm negative. I gave my cynical reaction to it. And I woke up in the middle of the night. It was one of those times where you just like wake up and the thought pops in your head. And I was like, oh, I felt so bad that I just didn't either ask a follow-up question and so I went down to her the next morning and I'm like, hey, I just wanted to apologize because you shared this with me. And instead of just listening and making space, I gave you my kind of cynical, judgmental response to it. Mm-hmm. And she looks at me, and this is her though. She's so mad. She's like, Mom, you overthink things. She's my Virgo, my very just like, if I can't change it, I'm moving on from it, kid. I'm like, if I could bottle up way you think and like give it to all of the people I work with, like, she's just like, I either change things or I don't. And I move on from it if I can't change it. I'm like, you're fucking amazing, child. She will do well in life. But also inside I was like, oh, I didn't even notice it until hours later that I was like, oh, I should not have done that.
Yeah. It's so hard. And I don't know about your olders, but I think my kids are watching me struggle, try to allow them to be adults. And it's been an interesting thing where like you can see them kind of almost sometimes cueing me. Like, I got this one.
Yeah.
I can handle this, Mom. And so that's what I'm hearing, that your daughter's kind of back and forth a little bit of I don't know, rising up and finding somewhat more of an even relationship, as opposed to that younger child parent relationship that, we have been in for so long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you're probably years removed from this already. But one of the things I struggle with is them getting a hold of me in the middle of the night if they need to, because I don't hear my phone and I haven't quite figured out how to have it so I can hear my phone. So I got a landline telephone. And my daughter last night, because I was, I don't, it's like doesn't work right now. I don't know if we don't have a telephone, but I plugged it in and then it got stuck. Like, the jack thing that you plug in, it got stuck because I was going around the house trying to plug it in. And my younger daughter was like, why is there a phone in my room? And then my 16-year-old looks at me and she's like, why, mom? And I'm like, well, I want them to be able to get a hold of us because I'm afraid I won't hear my phone ring. And she just rolls her eyes at me like, you worry too much. And I don't know. This is like this area that I'm like, I don't know how to be in this space because I sleep fine. But also, if you need me in the night, I want to be able to be there for you to support you with whatever. Like we did have something a couple weeks ago. It wasn't horrible, but she needed us. And she had her phone stolen. And because I have everything on Do Not Disturb, but the two bigs that are in college, and then like my parents, it didn't come through. So I'm like, okay, what? And I never thought about that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I need a solution for this.
Oh,
yeah.
That letting go. And then where are the just parameters of this is what adult relationships do is that they keep each other in mind so that they can be aware of, are we all safe? We still roll that one around in my household of, oh gosh, yes.
I left my kids home alone, the older ones, for the first time last year for like, it was like an extended weekend. We just went to Chicago and my neighbor, like we have very close relations all over. So I felt very comfortable. Well, my son, 10 p.m., I like checking our alarms and looking at everything because I'm going to bed. And I can see a shadow pacing in our garage. And I'm like, hey, I'm like texting them like, hey, the garage isn't shut. And I can see somebody. And sometimes he would like swing golf clubs in there. So I'm like, not sure. Then he calls me. He backed his car because he doesn't normally park in the garage. And he was since we were gone. He backed his car into the garage door and couldn't get the garage door to come down. And I'm like, okay, I'm not very, I know you pull the little red handle thing. And he's like, I already tried that. It didn't work. It's stuck. I call my dad. He answers the phone after 10 p.m. Like, Dad, why did you answer? He's like, well, I have it so it rings in case you need me. I am 44 years old. My dad is in his 70s and answers his phone. So I am like, this is our rule. Like this doesn't, and then that was very pivotal for me because he hadn't left yet the house, my son. And that meant one, I was so thankful because then he called my son and talked him through it and they figured it out. And I thought, how great, how lucky am I that I can call my dad at 44 years old and he answers the phone in the middle of the night to talk my adult son through a garage door repair.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, like when we have these young adults and teenagers, like that's what we're going. I mean, at least for me as a parent, that's what I'm going towards. Like, I'm always going to pick up the phone in the middle of the night. This just isn't because you're a teenager and I'm worried, like, you're going to get into some trouble. This isn't always for you. That doesn't change just because you turned into an adult suddenly.
Something popped in my head when you said that. My husband and I are working through some stuff kind of foundationally in our marriage. We kind of realized that we just had a lot of love and just got hitched and didn't really think about like the pillars of our marriage. And so we've been thinking a lot about kind of a philosophy in parenting. And I wonder if that idea, the sort of lens, could be applied to this. Sort of like, okay, when you just said kind of I think you said something about like what guides you. And I wonder if that could be applied to this because it's different for all of them. They all have different personalities. However, my goal in this is to be this way. So when we're self-managing and, regulating and making decisions, it's through what lens have we pre-decided this is how we want to show up? Because right now I'm just out here in the wild, free balling it.
Yep. It's so interesting because in our parent coaching work, one of the very first things we do is we talk about values of our parenting. And, when I did the work, I was like, values, whatever. It is fascinating how different everybody's values are in parenting. right? As you're calling them, those foundations, those pillars. And that if you know what they are and they're really clear for you, it makes parenting so much easier, especially when they get older. Because now we know like the few things that are really the touch points that we really are going to stick to. I know like for me in parenting, independence and exploration is a huge one for me. It has always been just central and important. Both of my young adults are about to take off either across the country or across the world for 6 months.
Oh, I just got goosebumps.
Is, right? Terrifying.
Yes, because you did it.
I did this to them.
You did a good job.
I did. I just said it. I just texted it to my partner this morning. Like, I raised these children to leave and go far and explore. And oh gosh, now they are. Whoa.
Yeah, that's funny. So mine is independence and curiosity and like the ability to ask questions of everything and everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think you're exactly right. Those foundations, those pillars that like what's important to you. You know, I work with some families who, you know, connection and, you know, hardworking is there some really strong values. And you just see really different guideposts.
Yeah.
All of it good. You just see different guideposts.
I wonder, you know, when you're thinking about values and you're thinking about, and I guess it would be reverse engineering it, you know, what kind of children how do you want them to be? And then reverse engineer that to your values. But it would be really interesting to see these parents parented through this set of values and this set and seeing what, like track the children. Do you know anything about that? Because I feel like that would be fascinating.
I think it would be fascinating. I mean, I just see it in my parent coaching work, right? So it's, you know, it's like a tiny little number, but it floors me how differently, you know, even with good communication and good regulation and all of the emotional attunement and all of the things that a parent who's informed can do, it still looks really different.
Yeah.
In how they turn out and what they do. And you just said something that struck me, you know, out here parenting in the wild, you know, it's like, whew, if you don't have the guideposts.
Yeah.
Intentionally there and in your mind. And who sits down when they have a baby or become a parent and says, let's think about our values? No one.
No, you're not sleeping.
Right. We're just trying to keep this tiny thing alive, right?
Yeah. And ourselves. Like we just need to make it to the end of the day. Oh yeah. Okay. At what point do you see people, I mean, I guess mine kind of, I guess, was born out of my divorce. And maybe that's what it is. You see a lot of things probably born out of some sort of adversity. But I feel like the young, and I say young, like in their 30s, the people that I see and work with that are having kids now and families, I feel like they have this nailed down. I feel like what do you see that? And what is that? Because I hear the few people, I don't have a whole lot of pool of that population, but the ones I do are so clear and their communication. And I'm like, whoa, like, I don't know what happened, but you guys are fabulous. I love you. I wish I had that when I was 30.
You know, it's interesting because we parent with information from how we were parented. That doesn't mean we parent exactly how we were parented. We might choose to do the opposite. I think that 30-year-old bunch and younger was parented differently. I truly do. And I, you know, this is why I do this work, because, you know, it's fun. As I said, I'm starting to see it in my kids is you take on what was given to you until you choose to do something else, right? You have choice as an adult. And I also think that there's just so much more information out there. I mean, I know when I was parenting when they were young, it was books, right? You had to read a book. Now, you know, you just open your phone and you have like just this plethora of information that I didn't have available to me. So I think that's my sense of what's happening. And it's really interesting watching, especially that emotional attunement.
Yes. It is. I was walking with a friend of mine and we share the same therapist and she's fresh in parenting. And the things that she was saying that she does within her marriage and within parenting, and she has a young kid, I was blown away. blown away. And yeah, I think also the access to the information that we just didn't. And even now I listen to things and I'll send it to my kids. And sometimes it's like big bold letters, watch this.
Yep.
Because they don't
Do the same.
And I have learned so much, just even about talking to them in a way and sort of realizing, oh, they're also getting this information. So I appreciate it. And it's also challenging to be called out for not either validating or holding there's something. And I struggle, and I've talked about this on here before. I'm generally right. Just in
Yeah, me too.
Like
yeah.
I feel very right.
Yep.
And knowing, okay, I know that this is not okay in all areas of life. Some areas, yes. And I also joke about it because I know I'm not right all the time. I know that, but also, yes, I am. And having that with a kid who will challenge you, which again, that is one of my values is I want you to challenge authority and challenge and ask questions. And then when it's turned back on me, which is how it feels, and I know it's just the skills that I have offered and tried to develop, it feels so challenging and just I don't even, it almost like I can feel my throat closing because of it, because I don't know exactly how to be within that space.
Yeah. Yes. I hear you 1,000%. And I have so many examples of my life, a lot, especially when I have maybe not been as regulated or as validating. And yeah, and one of my kids will be able to be the more regulated and the more validating one. And I'll be like, and maybe that's why, I don't know, maybe that's part of why this teenage young adult time is so challenging, because they're able to use those skills in a more reciprocal way, which really highlights our own stuff.
Yeah. So you say this, and my younger kids, the school that they're in has I can't remember what it's called exactly, but they have a class that teaches them about regulation and all that, which is delightful, except for when I am just I have passion when I speak. And they'll always, Mommy, why are you yelling? No, I'm not yelling. You should know me long enough to know that this is not my yelling. I'm just passionate and excited and maybe a little feisty. But take a deep breath, Mom. Take a deep breath. And if you need another one, take another one and maybe walk. And I'm like, it is wild to see their skills play out. And then also, yes, I feel challenged sometimes. Like I have to defend what it is that I'm doing. And also I shouldn't, because they are showing the skills that I want them to have out. And it's very interesting.
So interesting.
Because we are a product of what we saw. And how do we, you've seen the thing with the cups, with the glasses, where the grandparents and you pour it into the next generation and they take it and you pour it and you pour it. So we are getting back, we reap what you sow, which is delightful. And also handling them in this adult body with adult brains in it is, I don't know. I don't even have the words for it. It just feels different, and probably touching back on that loss of control feeling, like I am the adult, you are the child, because that's not what it is. We are both adults here having very adult conversations.
Yeah. It's a little vulnerable.
Vulnerable.
To me. It's a little vulnerable. Mm-hmm.
That's it. That is exactly. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that makes me uncomfortable just thinking about it. So then what?
Gosh, this is where we sit in our uncomfortable. Like, this is our work to do as parents.
Yeah.
And when these kids reflect this stuff back on us because they are up and closer to adult brains and are able to use the skills that we've taught them, that's our work. It's uncomfortable.
I think we're both having the same physical, if you can see us, we are both like squirming in our white sweaters because it feels so like, get it out of me. And I think you and I are probably a little bit aligned on our personalities and kind of how we like, yes, I can do it. I can teach you how to do it.
Yeah. I've got the answer.
I totally
got the answer.
do.
Why wouldn't I? Yep. Mm-hmm. And then they have an answer that might be better than ours. And that's tricky.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is. And especially, okay, so something I'm thinking of is you're in these situations and yes, the vulnerable piece comes up where it's sort of like that mirror is maybe put back on us, or in some way we have to do some self-reflection. The interesting, I feel like something is constantly on fire.
Yeah.
How do parents notice this? and put the little like ear flap down on the book of, I need to come back to this, or this is something, because that, I mean, that's what I work with people on is if you don't make the space for it, it's not going to change. You have to make very intentional space. And I feel like sometimes there can be so many vulnerable spaces or so many things highlighted that it's like, where do we even start? And how do we remember to earmark this little vulnerable spot inside of us and come back to it to better it for our children and us, really?
Yeah. This one I had to do a lot of work with. I used a concrete strategy, and it doesn't always isn't the everything. But the concrete strategy is I found myself having to write down, like I would get my notes app out and write down like what happened in the engagement when it felt so uncomfortable and I knew it was pushing on something, when all I wanted to do was step in and attempt to control, and I couldn't. As they became teenagers and young adults, and that's how I held space for it some of the time was, they said, I don't need to be home at midnight. I said, it's unsafe to be out past midnight. That's all sometimes I had to do because like it was too, otherwise you go down the rabbit hole of like, I need to do this and I need to change that. And then you start,
I love a good rabbit hole.
Right. You're like,
I feel real cozy and comfy.
Yeah, right. You're down there and then like everything's wrong and then you're the worst parent in the world and then your kid's going to be a mess and all the things. To keep it just to like, okay, this is the piece that's feeling uncomfortable right now. Bring it back into my brain. And then the other one was, I mean, really, this is where like I found little delights in sensory information, right? This is straight up nervous system regulation.
Yeah.
Because nothing can happen. You can't get yourself out of the rabbit hole or really process anything until you're there.
I like the idea of the notes.
Yeah.
Like, I was giggling, laughing about what might I title that note. My best friend is under strict instructions. If I ever kick the bucket, she needs to delete my notes. Like there is information that nobody needs, just random ass shit. And then also the deep, dark parts of my soul purged into my notes app. I like that. Like just putting, this is exactly what happened. Not exactly, but like a couple sentences and then reflecting on it, kind of like you would do a grocery list. I mean, my Costco list is in there. I think of it. Yeah, I put it in there. Something happens. I put it in there and it's like, what's the theme here?
Right. I can put that down for now. And what ends up happening is your brain's able to process. I find my brain's able to process it a little bit easier than if it's still floaty or swimmy. It's also a strategy that I teach parents to use with their toddlers. It also creates a pause, right? When our kids are saying something ridiculous and we want to be right, we need to be right, and we're sure we're right, and we want to keep going. Yeah.
I struggle. I have some that don't allow that pause. And that's where I struggle because I'm like, oh, we're getting into, I very much am good at saying, I need this space. I have to take this pause. But when I'm pushed on, that's when I lose my self-regulation. And it's like, I don't like it. I am so much better at that now. However, when you have kind of the opposite, that's like, no, I don't know if that's like an attachment style. I feel like I'm getting this stuff from TikTok where it's
it's an attachment. Yeah.
Yes. Where they need it to have that confirmation that you are here and it is safe. And that's so hard for me because it's like, and I have to imagine that everybody has, that sort of opposite where like my daughter and I, we could go like if something, which rarely does, but if it does, we could go days and just like, we're going to go our separate ways where it's like, no, we'll just leave this and we may or may come back to it later, but we need to part.
Yes. Yep. And when you have the kiddo who really needs it, and it's teaching them to stress tolerance that they can't always keep it going. Like we got to stop sometimes. We got to pause.
Yeah.
But, as they get older, their arguments are so much better. Right.
I love that. I mean, I just remember, which I hate sometimes when my kids press me, normally the little kids now, but I'll be like, well, because I said so. And I'm like, don't make me sound like my parents did. I tell them that. I'm like, I don't like it when you do this. But I love when, and I love / hate when the older ones would say an argument, and not like an actual argument, but their kind of rebuttal was logical. And I was like, oh, well, I guess that does make sense. And it's like,
Uh-huh.
okay, like that is such a beautiful space to be in when they can volley something back and it makes you change your perspective because it makes it's, oh, okay. Yeah, that does. I just don't have to do what I've always done in whatever capacity that is. Your reasoning is spot on, of course.
And I think that's the beauty and the complexity of parenting our young adults.
Right. Mm-hmm. I feel like our facial features.
I know, it's like, uh-huh.
It is though. It feels like a very, and I'm noticing body language is something, and I'm guessing that you do too. It just feels equal parts freeing and constricting at the same, like, how do we do this? And also, we can absolutely do this. We have done so many other things. Mm-hmm. And to your point of kind of walking our own path, and maybe that's, maybe that's the different lens and walking our own path is as long as we are staying the course that we know to be true, not in the I am right type of way, but as in raising them the way that, we have kind of chosen. I feel like if you do stay in your values,
yeah,
like as your North Star,
mm-hmm.
and learn self-regulation. Do you know anything about, I'm going to go off on a little squirrel here. Do you know anything about the somatic healing? I feel like that, and I interviewed Emma Schuster on here about somatic healing because I feel like that is my next step in. Have you done anything like that?
I haven't done specific somatic therapy as it's like talked about in mental health treatment, but I've done a lot of somatic healing.
Okay.
Work, both through different types of body work and through just my practice and OT. And man, it's powerful stuff to get out of your brain and get into your body a little bit more. Mm-hmm.
How do you think, because this is even after, like, I feel like I learned so much from her, as did the listeners, but how do you, in this capacity in parenting, how do you use those skills and how do you teach those skills? Because that's kind of what we've identified, okay, values, and then also self-regulation within your body, which I think a lot of my listeners are roughly around our age. Mm-hmm. And that was not things that we had access to 20 years ago. So we are having to learn this while in the trenches of losing our shit sometimes.
Correct. We were, in fact, many of us were actively supported not to pay attention to our bodies, right?
Yeah. Go in your room, shut the door.
Yep. Put a smile on your face.
Yes.
Right. Put a smile on your face. It's not that bad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Get over it.
Get over it. I feel like in my parent work and personally, the work I've done, it's the everything. If you're not, so how do I teach it? First things first is we got to turn our bodies back on. We got to be able to sense our bodies. We have to feel it. That can be something as simple as, for some parents, that's, when you wake up for the first 30 seconds, that's paying attention to all your body parts. For some parents, that's finding the level of exertion where you can actually feel all your body parts. For some, it might be being able to understand where you feel an emotion in your body. That's a little bit of a higher level skill.
Ooh, you make me uncomfy with that one.
Yeah. Right. Some parents are able to do that, but for a lot of us, that just takes work to feel that beginning bubbling up of an emotion and where it's landing and what's happening there, because that's the work that tells you what you need and what's feeling right and what's feeling wrong and all of the things which we need for parenting, especially these ones who have, smarter brains at this point and are a little bit more complex in their thinking. I think that there's a place for, I'm an OT by training. So, right, I've spent the last 25 years looking at the 8 sensory systems and like what you can all do in order to turn all of those on. And literally it's turning them all on. It's turning on your sense of touch. It's turning on your sense of sound. It's being able to use your vision effectively. And again, I just don't think as adults in our society, most of us are doing that. All right, it sounds so simple, but it's just really not that simple to be turning on those things. What do you seek? What kind of movement? What kind of touch? What kind of all the things do you seek during your day? Well, there's a clue of what you might need, what might feel good in order to start paying attention to your body. And so I find that it's interesting in my parent coaching work, we talk about it pretty much at the beginning of the work that we do. We do about 12 to 14 weeks, and like clockwork, 9 to 10 weeks in, parents are suddenly like, I felt my body this week.
Oh, that has to be such a fun experience for you to be with them on that.
It's so cool. It's so cool when it starts like bubbling up. And then once it bubbles up, you kind of can't turn it off very well.
You can't unsee it.
You cannot unsee that once it starts.
No, it's there.
Yep. And so then we have to figure out what to do about it.
Yeah, because it's there.
But as of now, it's there. Yep. But once it's there, you have so much power. And so that's, I feel, from my perspective, that's the somatic piece that is important. And then obviously there's like somatic trauma work, right? How we hold different experiences in our body, which is a little bit deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really interesting. And I think probably at this, I mean, I feel like for, I don't know if I was older parent, but parents of older kids, I feel like we probably are at we can feel it already. And maybe like the deeper, I don't know, like if there's levels to it about the kind of regulation part of it. And I think sometimes too, is it just like I talked about in the beginning about how the email, it comes when you are not expecting it. And that I think is part of the trickiness of it, is you can be in the middle of this delightful day where you're working with your clients and you're doing all the things and every sun is shining, and then pow,
boom. Yep.
You are no longer in that state. One thing that I have noticed with the people that I work with is when they have the practice established with whatever it is, they can then have access to regulating. But even it took me a second because I was on a call. I'd finished up the call and I checked my email and I saw the email, and all of a sudden I was hangry. I could feel my stomach cramps. The dryer was too loud and my shirt was uncomfortable. And it just talk about sensories.
Yeah.
It was too much all at once, but it all started from that email. And had I not been aware of that, because I was then talking, I'm like, I don't know. I just feel everything is too loud right now. Like, the sensory overload. And I was telling my husband, and all of a sudden I was like, wait a second. This started with the email. The email was what triggered me. And the email is what sent me into this. And then once I kind of had that awareness of it, then I was able to, I'm like, okay, I can do this now. But 10 years ago, that would have probably taken me, and it's so I mean, it's just an email, but it would have taken me probably an entire day to recover from, because it would have just kept snowballing and spiraling into this and this and this.
Yeah. 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 And I think that because you have the awareness of like what your body's doing in the moment, right? It was going to do it no matter what, right? Mm-hmm. The dryer and all the things, but you were able to connect the dots of like, that feels gross.
Yeah. Big gross.
Yeah. It doesn't feel right.
And I was like, of course I'm going on this. Like, this was actually, it was so perfect. Cause I'm like, here, I normally would not share that experience that happened. I would just come on and do the recording, but I'm like, this is a perfect opportunity to share. Yeah. It comes out of nowhere, and we are the holders of the space of it, and it could have been, it could have been a text message, from an older one. It just happened to be my littles, but it's preparing ourselves and staying. And I responded to it from the values, which is really interesting, because I didn't even think that, but I guess we live out our values. But I really, to your point earlier, I think creating a stronger awareness of that and being very intentional with it, even if we do it subconsciously, which I'm guessing that we do. I think in the harder moments where we're having to kind of either problem solve with them or make big decisions on how we want to show up, especially when we're caught off guard and not some of the things we can anticipate, like coming home for summer break or things like that, where it's like, I need to prepare to be in this sort of different environment now. We can prepare for that. We can't prepare for the email or the text message or the middle of those are things we can't prepare for. So I really love the idea of coming back to our values, coming back to our bodies in a very intentional manner as our guide.
Yeah. And really, when we come back to our body, the entire purpose is to find safety. Like, can we find safety in our body, even if whatever chaos our children are bringing is happening. Like, can we find safety? Like, am I safe right now? Yeah, I am. And here are the cues that I'm safe.
Well, what are those cues as you see it? Or
The
maybe
cues,
I'm guessing it's different for everybody, but generally speaking,
they can be different. But a safety cue might be, I know that I'm safe right now because I can look out my window in my bedroom and I see the cool leaves that are falling. And that's just a safety cue. I know that I'm safe right now because I put my coziest sweater on today. Right? Like, I'm physically really actually safe. Even if, like, you know, the kids being dysregulated at me, or, you know, there's an event that just happened that was uncomfortable, can be safe in my body, which is the step one of responding to all of this with our children and our young adults.
That's so, I mean, that's essentially what I wasn't thinking that, but the reason I'm wearing this shirt and not the really pretty green one that I had on is because it was choking me and I needed to feel safe in my body.
Safe
And
in your
all
body.
of the other things were making that not happen.
Correct.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I think that's a really good, I work a lot kind of in this space that we're like this kind of in parentheses around what we're talking about now about mantras and things like that, and having what you just said essentially, which would be also grounding and things. But looking out the window, I see the leaves. I feel this sweater that I picked out. I like to have kind of safety items. I used to when I had a stressful time in life, I would get Starbucks for when I used to have to go to do very stressful things, and I would get it in the cardboard sleeve that they made me feel so, which is silly. I mean, but it works. It works. It's the touch and like, I can feel it now and I can immediately go to that place within my body if I even think about it after, you know, having that happen.
It's a safety cue. Yeah.
Okay. I love this. Anything that you think would be helpful kind of after this conversation, or maybe anything that we didn't get to that you think would be helpful to share?
Yeah, we touched on, and I just think it's so important, is when you're parenting these olders, it's being the safe, stable base and using connection. I mean, really, it's about connection to let them be on their own path. They're on their own path, and we're just holding a line of connection for them and with them so that they can always come back to be supported or with whatever they need as they're trying to figure this out on their own.
That kind of reminds me of I like a good visual of like rock climbing. I don't remember what it is, but you have like the harness and whatever the pulley,
and the belay, or
yes. But kind of more on a parallel versus you're not up or down.
I love that.
Yeah, I love a good visual because that helps ground me and makes me feel safe when I can see things like that. That makes me feel very safe.
Yeah, they're climbing their own wall. We're just there to be the rope in case they need it.
Yeah, and letting them knowing that it's safe to do that, and we will all be okay.
We will all be okay.
Yeah, I love a good mantra. So hopefully, if you're listening this, and if you like mantras, hopefully this struck something, because I feel like, Jen, you gave a lot of opportunities for visuals and mantras, and I'm hoping, because this isn't, I mean, I talked about this with you, and I'm bringing up these conversations with people more, especially if I know they have older kids like we do. But you can tell they're like, oh, nobody's ever even, I was at the gym this morning and it's a lot of people with younger kids. And I asked this one woman how she was doing, and she then started sharing kind of this unknown, uncharted territory with her child. But you can also see this kind of almost like a spark of opportunity, because I feel like it's not talked about. So I hope with this conversation, if you're hearing this, maybe if you know somebody that has older kids, you could share it with them, because I do feel like it's sort of this void of, one, information, and two, the conversation. I don't see, I know that I'm having it, and I'll ask people weird and uncomfortable and awkward questions, but I feel like most people handle it on their own to not burden other people, or are not sure how to have these conversations. So I hope that this is an invitation for those of you out there to have these conversations within the community that you feel safe in, because as Jen and I both have perspectives of talking to parents of older kids, we are all in the trenches of handling all of this and all figuring it out without kind of knowing exactly what we're doing. So conversation can be really healing.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, Jen. Well, thank you so much. And I appreciate you sharing your expertise and your kind of path and all the things and being just vulnerable, because I know as both of us kind of cringed up at that, even like I appreciate you sharing that with us. How can people learn more about you or come in your circle, or what does that look like for people to connect with you?
Yeah, folks can reach out on my website, which is thrivingparentscollective.com. And that's where we offer all of our parenting supports and parent work.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you.
Spirit of a Badass is a Lit Path Studios podcast and is produced by Jamie Gale and Alecia Jacobson. Music by Shane Ivers. We'll be back with another inspiring interview. Until then, keep your spirits high and your energy badass.